The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
I am an EMT. If you are injured, come to me.
It felt like a showdown was coming to town.
People are getting injured, and our job is to protect this business, and part of my job is also help people.
At first, I was like, it kind of sounded like a firework, and I was like, oh no, that's a gun battle.
People are getting shot all around us. People are just getting shot everywhere, guys.
Kyle Rittenhouse, according to police, 17-year-old, lives in Antioch, Illinois, which is about 20 miles from Kenosha.
Do you want to have a lawyer to circle yes or no? I would like a lawyer, but I'm willing to talk.
It's not a matter of who done it. It's just the matter of the intent.
What is he looking at? It could range anywhere from reckless injury to reckless homicide and
murder. Do you satisfy the testimony about to give this matter the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
They were unbelievably brave, courageous individuals.
That's right, run.
It was scary to put him on, but we felt as though we had to.
Has the jury reached a verdict as to each count of the information?
Tuesday night, August 25th, 2020. Gunshots ring out just before midnight in Kenosha, Wisconsin. 2 people would end up dead, and a 17-year-old boy named Kyle Rittenhouse was charged with their murders. His case would split the country in half, with people hailing him as a hero or blasting him as an armed vigilante. I'm Ted Rowlands, and this is Victim to Verdict, Chaos in Kenosha.
What are you doing out here? Obviously, you're armed, and you're in front of this business we saw burning last night, so what's up?
So people are getting injured, and our job is to protect this business.
This is 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse, just hours before he would become a household name.
And part of my job is also help people. If there's somebody hurt, I'm running into harm's way.
While he doesn't know it yet, he is clearly in over his head.
That's why I have my rifle, because I need to protect myself, obviously. I also have my med kit.
It's the third night of protests in Kenosha, Wisconsin, sparked by a recent officer-involved shooting of a man named Jacob Blake.
Tensions were already running high in America. George Floyd was killed back in May 25th of 2020.
What do you want? I can breathe.
Now there's a brand new viral video out of a place called Kenosha, Wisconsin. Another police shooting.
Chaos erupted in Kenosha overnight. Large fires engulfed dump trucks, and law enforcement appeared to deploy tear gas to disperse large crowds. I was working that Sunday, and I get a call from my assignment editor, and he says, "We've had an officer-involved shooting in Kenosha."
Along with the protesters, citizen journalists armed with cameras and cell phones also flocked to Kenosha, broadcasting live minute by minute to the world.
This is independent journalism. I'm doing everything I'm doing just 100% viewer funded, viewer engaged.
This building is gone. This is gonna be an empty lot.
All the cars over there are gonna start spreading just like last night into that building. Oh, that other one just went up too.
One of those citizen journalists was Kenosha native Corey Elijah.
As I walk out onto 56th Street, all of the garbage trucks are ablaze. So this is the scene. We got some vehicles on fire. And that was the moment I had the real realization that things were more serious than definitely the situation with the George Floyd protests.
No matter where you were sitting, you could be sitting somewhere in Europe and feel like you could be a part of these protests. So that was what was really different, and I think helped Kenosha become a little bit of a powder keg.
We're not going to put up with what we saw Monday night. We're going to be assertive in helping to protect the city of Kenosha in Kenosha County.
It was mass chaos in Kenosha, and we know the police were trying their best, but police can't be everywhere. And at the same time, Jacob Blake's family was even coming out publicly and pleading for peace.
If Jacob knew what was going on as far as that goes, the violence and the destruction, he would be very unpleased.
The first night of protests were centered in downtown Kenosha on Sheridan Road. One of the many businesses destroyed was a used car lot named Car Source.
In the daylight, you could see charred remains of a used car lot. And I do remember one thing about Sunday night. It was very late. It was probably like, well, Monday morning, 3 in the morning. That whole car lot was just ablaze.
It was really the smell of the burning rubber that really got you. And then, I mean, at a certain point, it's a giant car lot full of cars that are full of gas. So it sounded like a war zone with a bunch of bombs blowing up.
One of the businesses that gets hit is Car Source, and they've got 3 different locations on this main strip in Kenosha. And it's what's happening to this business that ends up becoming the connection to Kyle Rittenhouse.
Coming up.
Hey, he just shot them! Hey, dude right here just shot them!
17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse arms himself with an assault rifle and ends up in the middle of a deadly shooting and a national debate.
Kyle Rittenhouse is the hero of Kenosha.
And my son lost his life protecting other people. He was a hero.
The Court TV podcast will return.
It's Tuesday, August 25th, 2020, the third day of unrest in Kenosha, Wisconsin, after the officer-involved shooting of 29-year-old Jacob Blake. Blake was seriously injured in that shooting, and over the past 2 nights, dozens of businesses were destroyed, burned to the ground, as local authorities tried to regain control. Along with the hundreds of protesters, dozens of citizen journalists are streaming live to the world from Sheridan Road, the epicenter of the first night of protests.
Things just got heated. I'm not going to stand in a line of fire at all.
You get to the third night of this unrest, of these protests, of this riot that is taking place. You've got local police there, obviously. The National Guard comes in. And then you've got some citizens who come in, the Kenosha Guard.
It's this loose organization. Somebody had a Facebook page, called it the Kenosha Guard. There were a lot of topics being discussed on that website, and they didn't like what was going on.
And I'm here with a bunch of militia. They're protecting a local car shop. They're not being paid to be here, but they are doing it in service to the owner.
This is disturbing for a number of reasons, because here you have citizens acting like a police officer. We know that police have lots and lots of training to do the job that they do.
It felt like a showdown was coming to town, and you know, like an old Western.
Among the volunteer militia is 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse, armed with an AR-15 and a medical kit.
I am an EMT. If you are injured, come to me.
Kyle Rittenhouse, according to police, 17-year-old, lives in Antioch, Illinois, which is about 20 miles from Kenosha. He used to work as a lifeguard. He was in like a youth police program. Reports of his social media indicate that he was a big supporter of police. There was a picture of him holding the alleged weapon on Facebook.
Rittenhouse had traveled to Kenosha with a friend, Dominic Black, who at 18 was a year older than Kyle and was dating his sister.
Dominic Black tells police that he was an employee of Car Source and that he and Kyle Rittenhouse kind of answered the call to go protect the other lots that were still at risk of damage in the following nights of protesting.
So if people are getting injured, and our job is to protect this business, and part of my job is also help people. If there's somebody hurt, I'm running into harm's way.
What's really striking is you look at Kyle Rittenhouse, and he's got like these chubby cheeks, right? He's kind of a small guy with a big gun. And you wonder, he's not an adult. He's literally a child. He's underage, but he's in the middle of all of this. Seems somewhat out of place.
I guess chemical bombs are allegedly being used. I didn't get an idea of what kind of chemical bomb.
They're mixing ammonia, gasoline together, and it's causing an ammonia.
And what does that do?
It causes irritation to the throat and eyes, and the police are also using tear gas.
It's like tear gas?
It's worse than tear gas.
Meanwhile, a block away, there is another group of citizen militia who end up getting into an argument with protesters in the gas station parking lot. In the group of protesters is Joseph Rosenbaum. He's a 36-year-old convicted felon from Arizona who had just been discharged from a Milwaukee hospital after attempting suicide. Behind Rosenbaum is Anthony Huber, holding a skateboard in his left hand. He has been protesting for 2 nights and was a friend of Jacob Blake. Also in the same parking lot is 35-year-old Joshua Zeminski, wearing a black hoodie and stocking cap. And in this video, it is clear he is holding a firearm in his right hand. Now watch as Joseph Rosenbaum becomes noticeably agitated.
Shoot me! Shoot me!
Kyle Rittenhouse spent most of his night at the CarSource parking lot at the corner of 59th and Sheridan. But at some point, he and another volunteer decided to leave and go to another location about 4 blocks away. As Kyle and his partner move down Sheridan, Kyle is asking people if they need medical attention.
Does anybody need medical?
But eventually, Rittenhouse gets separated and then tries to make his way back to where he started.
At one point, our cameras caught Kyle Rittenhouse walking by, going up to the officers, kind of trying to communicate with them, saying, hey, I work at that business. I'm just here to protect the business, is what he said. And the officers just kind of shoot him away.
This road is closed. Not cross on the Sheridan. Do not come down here. 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 It's been made very clear to you. Do not come down here. You with the long gun, do not come down here. This is wrong.
I do remember seeing him, because it wasn't too many of the militia, members, I guess, with those big guns. I mean, they stuck out. Kyle Rittenhouse stuck out.
He didn't really seem like he was with anyone, right? Like he was with people or something, but he seemed kind of disconnected from everyone.
Kyle Rittenhouse ends up at the same gas station where Joseph Rosenbaum, Anthony Huber, and Joshua Zeminski were earlier. And within hours, all 3 men and Kyle Rittenhouse would come face to face with deadly results. Coming up, gunfire on Sheridan Road.
It kind of sounded like a firework. I was like, oh no, that's a gun battle.
Plus, a courtroom showdown.
I had heard nothing in this trial to change any of my rulings. So why?
Testimony, Your Honor.
Pardon me?
That was before the defense testimony.
Don't get brazen with me.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast. The following program contains graphic images. Viewer discretion is advised.
It's 11 p.m. on Tuesday, August 25th, 2020. 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse has traveled from his home in Illinois to Kenosha, Wisconsin. He's there, along with dozens of other armed private citizens, to protect local businesses. And it seems that law enforcement appreciates the volunteer militia.
You could even see the officers giving them water, almost de facto deputizing them, telling them thank you for being out here. Take a look at the video.
Stand far right. You need water. We need water. We're throwing one. Thank you. All right, come on, guys. Let's get out of here.
You see police handing out water to Rittenhouse and company for helping police in the streets of Kenosha. This is not normal.
At some point, Kyle Rittenhouse decides to leave the used car lot he's protecting on Sheridan Road and walk to another lot owned by the same business, 4 blocks south. Corey Elijah is the citizen journalist who has been live streaming the protests.
Definitely people throwing rocks. Be careful.
Elijah, who is on Sheridan Road, sees Rittenhouse run past him carrying a fire extinguisher.
Kyle runs past me. Where he's going, I'm not sure. I believe he had a fire extinguisher in his hand or something in his hand, but no one was chasing him at all. So I'm like, all right, well, maybe there's something going on down there. So I just get on my skateboard and, I start streaming and heading down in that direction.
So Kyle Rittenhouse eventually gets to the Car Source parking lot. And when he gets there, who else is there? Joseph Rosenbaum and Joshua Zeminski. And you've got Kyle Rittenhouse in the middle of it.
As I'm skating up, I see people start jumping on cars and, start beating on cars. And then as I turn to head in that direction, that's when the gunfire lets out from somewhere behind me. We got shots fired, guys.
There are several videos of the interaction between Kyle Rittenhouse and Joseph Rosenbaum in the Car Source 3 parking lot. This is a bird's eye view from an FBI plane. It's difficult to see. This is Kyle Rittenhouse. Just behind him is Joseph Rosenbaum. Rosenbaum chases Rittenhouse down before Rittenhouse turns and shoots him. Now, here's the view from across the street, from on the ground. You can see they both move out of frame behind a car before gunshots erupt. This is the third angle. You can see Kyle Rittenhouse before shots are fired, and you see Joseph Rosenbaum. But look closely to the far left, just beyond the lot. There's a flash. Somebody discharges a weapon seconds before Kyle starts shooting. Now, watch this drone video, which is the clearest view of the chase. You can actually see the smoke rising from Kyle's gun. After the shooting, Rittenhouse walks around the black sedan, then seems to look down at Rosenbaum before he takes out his cell phone.
What's ironic about that is he said he was there to provide medical aid, but he doesn't provide medical aid to the person that he shot, Joseph Rosenbaum, at that time. Again, he makes a phone call and then leaves the area.
While the video of the shooting itself wasn't super clear, the aftermath of the shooting is almost too clear. I mean, you see what happened to Rosenbaum, and you see people trying to help. People, they don't know what to do.
Where? Dude, where's the hole?
Wait, where are you at? Where are you? In his head, in his head!
After he shoots Rosenbaum, people start chasing Kyle Rittenhouse down Sheridan Road, and that is when Brendan Gutenschwager starts recording.
People were immediately yelling at him, saying, "Get him, grab him, he just shot somebody."
2 people are chasing Kyle down. Anthony Huber, who was carrying his skateboard, and Gage Grosskreutz, who was armed with a gun.
And he's taking off down the street as several people are following, chasing after him, trying to tackle him down. So they were chasing after him. And at a certain point, he tripped and fell, the man with the gun. And so then as people started to close in on him and surround him, he started firing off at them.
In that video, there's a confrontation between Kyle Rittenhouse and Anthony Huber.
Anthony Huber, he's got his skateboard. A lot of people look at that video, and I know this is the way the defense sees it. He's using that skateboard as a weapon against Kyle Rittenhouse, trying to get him and perhaps trying to get his gun.
And as a result of that confrontation, Anthony Huber is shot. He is shot dead at that point.
Then immediately after, you see Gage Grosskreutz. He comes towards Kyle Rittenhouse. He's armed with a gun, and he gets shot, but he survived.
And again, speaking to the power of that weapon, it almost blows off Gage Grosskreuz's entire arm.
No. Target, take it.
I think about the screams, about the gunshots.
I think about everything all the time. I saw Anthony Huber get murdered right in front of me.
The shooter just got up and proceeded to walk towards the line of police that were there in the Bearcat and a couple vehicles. And he basically just walked right up to them with the gun still out in front of him.
Someone injured straight ahead.
Coming up.
Reckless injury, reckless homicide, and
murder. Kyle Rittenhouse turns himself in to police. And later, more tears as Kyle breaks down on the witness stand.
That's right, run.
This is the Court TV podcast. The following program contains graphic images. Viewer discretion is advised.
Immediately after the shootings in downtown Kenosha, Wisconsin, Kyle Rittenhouse was able to walk away from the crime scenes, going home to Illinois with his friend Dominic Black. But within hours, Rittenhouse and his mother Wendy showed up at the Antioch, Illinois Police Department.
Kyle and Wendy, never see on the other side of the pavement.
Notice when you watch the video, Kyle Rittenhouse walks into the interrogation room carrying a garbage can. Before he walked in, according to the police, he was a mess. He was hysterical, he was crying, he was throwing up.
Do you want to have a lawyer to strictly yes or no? I would like a lawyer, but I'm willing to talk until a lawyer is available. I'll let you know later that
They can't do anything because they can't do anything till the lawyer comes. That's all it goes to.
In the beginning of the whole thing, he exercises his Fifth Amendment right by saying, I want a lawyer. So at that point, it's over. But Kyle Rittenhouse did actually speak to Antioch police before actually backing into lawyering up. And his comments weren't recorded, but they did end up in a police report. Kyle told them that he had shot 2 white kids, that he had ended a man's life, and that he also mentioned that he had been beaten with a baseball bat and a skateboard at the time of the incident.
A few hours later, the decision is made to charge Kyle Rittenhouse with murder.
What is he looking at?
Could range anywhere from reckless injury to reckless homicide to second-degree homicide. I don't know yet. It's all going to depend on...
Murder?
That's what homicide is,
yeah.
Correct. Correct. I need you.
You got it.
Within hours of the shooting, 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse became a political lightning rod.
As this story explodes around the nation, I mean, people are watching those videos and hearing about what happened, and they are seeing 2 completely different things. I mean, people are dug in on both sides.
Free Kyle. Free Kyle. Free Kyle, yeah. My son was a hero, and my son lost his life protecting other people.
So many people were talking about this case and arguing about it. Even then President Donald Trump weighed in on the case.
They condemn the actions of vigilantes like Kyle Rittenhouse.
You saw the same tape as I saw, and he was trying to get away from them. I guess he was in very big trouble. He probably would have been killed.
In November of 2021, Kyle Rittenhouse went on trial at the Kenosha County Courthouse in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Attorneys Mark Richards and Corey Sharafazi were at his side as the world watched.
I knew this case had a lot of potential for publicity.
I did feel the Holy Spirit called me today to come here just to pray over this trial.
Hopefully today, both families will start to see the shades being pulled back and the light being in front of them, that they would get a victory today.
I had no idea it was going to blow up the way it did.
We want to begin here in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and day 1 of testimony in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Judge Bruce Schrader, Wisconsin's longest tenured circuit court judge, presided over the case and seated a jury in just 1 day.
We wanted law and order jurors, people who would be offended by what happened in Kenosha that day and the days before, which is kind of backwards when you're a criminal defense lawyer. But this case was kind of backwards that way.
Lead prosecutor Thomas Binger presented the state's opening statement.
The defendant, Kyle Rittenhouse, who was 17 years old at the time, had armed himself with an AR-15 style semi-automatic rifle loaded with 30 rounds in the magazine. And using that rifle, he shot and killed Joseph Rosenbaum, an unarmed man. The shot that killed Mr. Rosenbaum was a shot to the back. This occurred after the defendant chased down Mr. Rosenbaum and confronted him while wielding that AR-15.
To say that my client chased him down and shot him in the back when the whole video through Car Source 3 is Rosenbaum chasing my client is ridiculous. I don't know if he was trying to do it for shock value or he didn't know his case at that point. Neither of them are good answers.
Anthony Huber, who is holding a skateboard, comes in and reaches for the defendant's gun. And in that struggle, the gun winds up pointed directly at Mr. Huber's chest. The defendant pulls the trigger one time and discharges a round, killing him instantly. A final individual by the name of Gage Grosskreutz has followed this chase on foot and has approached the defendant at this time. He blades his body with his left hand, reaching towards the defendant. His right arm is pulled back. This is the one with the gun in his hand. And as he's reaching for the defendant turns the AR-15 and discharges the 8th and final round.
Kyle's attorneys told the jury that this was a case of a frightened 17-year-old boy in over his head who acted in self-defense.
You as jurors will end up looking at it from the standpoint of a 17-year-old under the circumstances as they existed on August 25th of 2020. And Mr. Binger makes a big thing out of Kyle Rittenhouse was the only person who shot somebody that evening. True. Mr. Rittenhouse was the only person who was chased by Joseph Rosenbaum that evening. The evidence will show that Mr. Zeminski and Mr. Rosenbaum are together throughout the evening. And Joshua Zeminski plays a central role in this scenario on August 25th. One, creating chaos and havoc with Mr. Rosenbaum. And two, more importantly, when we finally get to car source number 3, Mr. Zeminski is the individual who fires the first shot that evening.
Coming up, Gage Grosskreutz tells his story. And later, Kyle Rittenhouse takes the stand in his own defense.
She screamed, "If I catch any of you alone, I'm going to kill you."
The Court TV podcast will return.
In November of 2021 in Kenosha, Wisconsin, the 3-week trial was underway for Kyle Rittenhouse, and tensions were running high both outside the courthouse.
There's no way I'm going to let the Rittenhouse family up there feel unsupported.
And inside the courtroom.
Oh, wait a minute. You're right. He has the right to testify. He has no obligation to testify.
Absolutely not.
For the truth of the matter asserted, it's irrelevant.
No, it goes to state of mind, Your Honor.
State of mind of
the defendant.
I knew that this case was different when I contacted Attorney Binger to try and keep my client's address secret because of the threats, the death threats, and he wouldn't agree to that.
You're an experienced trial attorney, and you're telling me that when the judge says, I'm excluding this, you just to take it upon yourself to put it in because you think that you've found a way around it? Come on.
It wasn't going to be common sense and good judgment. It was going to be more of a political case, and that's what it turned into.
The state of Wisconsin's first witness was Kyle's friend, Dominic Black, who bought him the gun and was with him that night in Kenosha. He also heard the gunshots ring out.
He was freaking out. He was really scared. He was pale, sweating a lot. You could tell he was just scared. He wasn't really talking. He just said he had to do it. It was self-defense. People are trying to hurt him.
The state calls Gage Grosskreutz.
Arguably, the most important witness for the prosecution was Gage Grosskreutz, who was one of the people that chased down Kyle Rittenhouse the night of the shooting.
Hey, what are you doing? You shot somebody? Who shot?
Grosskreutz, who was also armed, was the last person shot by Kyle Rittenhouse.
Did you see the defendant do anything with his gun after you put your hands up?
I did. After the defendant had pointed his weapon at me and I had put my hands in the air, I inferred that the defendant wasn't accepting my surrender. And so I decided that the best course of action would be to close the distance. I felt that I had to do something to try and prevent myself from being killed or being shot. I was never trying to kill the defendant.
Corey Sharafacy would handle the cross-examination of Gage Grosskreutz.
You'd agree your firearm is pointed at Mr. Rittenhouse, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Once your firearm is pointed at Mr. Rittenhouse, that's when he fires his gun. Yes?
No.
Sir, look, I don't want to... Does this look like right now your arm is being shot?
That looks like my bicep being vaporized, yes.
Okay. When you were standing 3 to 5 feet from him with your arms up in the air, he never fired, right?
Correct.
It wasn't until you pointed your gun at him, advanced on him, with your gun, now your hands down, pointed at him, that he fired, right?
Correct.
Jurors heard from 21 witnesses over 6 days during the state's case in chief. Then it was time for the defense and for Kyle Rittenhouse to tell his story.
Do you satisfy the testimony you're about to give in this matter be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
You may be seated.
We believed he had to testify, explain his state of mind. On August 25th of 2020, did you come to downtown Kenosha to look for trouble?
No.
Appearing in court is scary. It really is, especially for somebody who has no experience with it.
Were you a member of any groups, organized groups?
Yes. I was a police explorer for Grays Lake Police Department, and I was a firefighter EMT cadet for Antioch Fire Department.
It was scary to put him on, but we felt as though we had to, especially after the mock trials. On the night of the 24th, were you aware of anything going on in Kenosha?
I knew there was protests, demonstrations, and riots going on in the later evening.
We did 3 mock trials, and one of them was without Kyle testifying. He scored incredibly better with the juries that he testified in front of than the one he didn't.
Kyle Rittenhouse testified that his friend Dominic Black worked for the company that owned those car lots, Car Source, and that the two of them went to Kenosha that night to protect the lots.
When you would leave Car Source 2, what were you doing?
When I left, I was with Ryan Balch, and we would go out and ask if anybody needed any first aid assistance, and we would see if there were any fires, and we would put them out.
Does anybody need medical?
There was, I think, some misguided attempts at the beginning to try and paint him as a patriot, a member of a militia, which he wasn't.
Rittenhouse said he saw Joseph Rosenbaum and Joshua Zeminski early in the evening at one of those car lots, and that Rosenbaum was armed with a metal chain and threatened Kyle twice.
He screamed, sorry for my language, he screamed, if I catch any of you alone, I'm going to kill you. The second time was outside of the Car Source. He said, I'm going to cut your hearts out and kill you, N-words.
Kyle then described how Dominic Black called him and told him that they needed to go to a different car lot because people were setting cars on fire. And the first person he saw when he got there was Joshua Zeminski.
He steps towards me with a pistol in his hand, and as I'm walking towards to put out the fire, I drop the fire extinguisher and I take a step back. Once I take that step back, I look over my shoulder and Mr. Rosenbaum was now running from my right side. And I was cornered from in front of me with Mr. Zeminski. And there were
when he took the stand and he started to spin out and he started to shake and he started to have his face scrunch up, I think what they did is, at least to some degree, is they started to understand him differently.
There were 3 people right there.
Take a deep breath, pal.
That's where I run.
Just take time for our break anyway. You can just relax for a minute, sir.
Coming up, everybody that you shot at that night you intended to kill.
I intended to stop the people who were attacking me.
Don't get brazen with me. The defendant will rise, face the jury, and hearken to its verdicts.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
He shot him. He shot him. Get him there.
In August of the year 2020, 17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse shot and killed 2 people and injured another during protests on the streets of Kenosha, Wisconsin. 15 months later, Rittenhouse was telling his story to a jury.
Mr. Huber runs up. As I'm getting up, he strikes me in the neck with his skateboard a second time. He grabs my gun, and I can feel it pulling away from me, and I can feel the strap starting to come off my body.
And what do you do then?
I fire 1 shot.
Why were you trying to get to the police?
Because I didn't do anything wrong. I defended myself.
Facing 2 counts of murder, Kyle Rittenhouse spent just over an hour on direct examination. But that, of course, is the easy part. How would he hold up during the cross?
Good morning, Mr. Rittenhouse.
Good morning.
Everybody that you shot at that night you intended to kill, correct?
I didn't intend to kill them. I intended to stop the people who were attacking me.
By killing them?
I did what I had to do to stop the person who was attacking me.
By killing them?
2 of them passed away, but I stopped the threat from attacking me.
There was a lot of talk in the sense of, I think if a client's going to take the witness stand, you can't give him the answers, but he has to understand what your themes are and what you're trying to get out of him to advance the cause.
Do you see Mr. Rosenbaum in this picture?
I do.
You'd agree with me that there's no video of either one of these threats, correct?
I don't know if somebody filmed it that I'm aware of right now.
Kyle was a good student. He paid attention. He's not a dumb individual, and it was scary to put him on, but we felt as though we had to.
Kyle Rittenhouse would spend the entire day on the witness stand, and prosecutor Thomas Binger didn't seem to shake his story.
If you had seen someone running up the street with a gun and the crowd was saying that person just shot someone, like they were saying about you, you would have taken action to stop them yourself, wouldn't you?
No, I wouldn't have.
You're running around putting out fires, aren't you?
Yes.
You took it upon yourself to do the things that you didn't think the police or fire could do, correct?
I wouldn't say I took it upon myself, but I was helping people with first aid and putting out fires at businesses.
While prosecutor Binger didn't seem to rattle Kyle Rittenhouse during his cross-examination, his questions did seem to infuriate the judge, Judge Schrader.
And you'd agree with me that you're not allowed to use deadly force to protect property, correct?
Yes.
But yet you have previously indicated that you wished you had your AR-15 to protect someone's property, correct?
I'm going to ask you to go into the library again for a moment, please.
Thomas Binger is asking about a cell phone video from outside a CVS store 2 weeks before the shootings that Judge Schrader had already ruled would not be coming into evidence.
It looks like one of them has a weapon. Bro, I wish I had. All right, start shooting rounds at them.
First of all, Your Honor, this was the subject of a motion. I'm well aware of that. And the court left the door open.
For me, not for you.
My understanding of
You should have come and asked. Why would you think that that made it okay for you without any advance notice to bring this matter before the jury?
This is this judge's courtroom. He knows it. He's never forgotten it. And frankly, he makes sure that nobody else in the room will forget it either.
And by the way, Mr. Richards absolutely correctly points out that just hours ago, I said I had heard nothing in this trial to change any of my rulings. So why?
Testimony, Your Honor.
Pardon me?
That was before the defense testimony.
Don't get brazen with me.
Jurors would hear from 8 defense witnesses over 2 days. The closing arguments began on Monday of the 3rd week of trial.
But what you don't do is you don't bring a gun to a fist fight. What the defendant wants you to believe is that because he's the one who brought the gun, he gets to kill. They have to convince you that Joseph Rosenbaum was going to take that gun and use it on the defendant because they know you can't claim self-defense against an unarmed man like this. There is no doubt in this case that the defendant committed these crimes. The question is whether or not you believe that his actions were legally justified. And I submit to you that no reasonable person would have done what the defendant did. And that makes your decision easy. He is guilty of all counts.
Mr. Rosenbaum was hell-bent on causing trouble that night. He did what he did, and he started this.
Shoot me! Shoot me!
There are tragic parts of it, but Kyle Rittenhouse's behavior was protected under the law of the state of Wisconsin. There is no evidence whatsoever that he was an active shooter other than Mr. Binger calling him that. He wasn't shooting. And if they want to be the heroes and they want to beat somebody and do what they're going to do to them, they better be right. And they weren't. Kyle Rittenhouse shot Mr. Rosenbaum because he was attacking Kyle. Every person who was shot was attacking Kyle. One with a skateboard, one with his hands, one with his feet, one with a gun.
What the defense did so successfully is they took that piece of video and they said, hold on, let's look at it from this perspective. And the jury bid on that. And I think that's what made this so much more complicated than the prosecution thought it was going to be.
Jurors would deliberate for 3.5 days before reaching a verdict.
State of Wisconsin versus Kyle Rittenhouse. As to the first count of the information, Joseph Rosenbaum. May the jury find the defendant, Kyle H. Rittenhouse, not guilty.
Justice is done when the truth is reached, but a prosecutor is supposed to seek the truth. It's not about winning, and this case became about winning, and that's probably why it got so personal.
We're still in shock here, you know. That guy gets to run free, and he's now a hero, and this is my son right here. And there wasn't going to be justice in that Kenosha court.
Since his acquittal, Kyle Rittenhouse has become a high-profile guns rights supporter and an advocate for the Second Amendment. He's active on social media, having more than 1 million followers on X. He's also written his autobiography about the shootings and his trial, entitled Acquitted. I'm Ted Rowlands. Thanks for watching Victim to Verdict.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.